Hi, I'm Chantra Powell, and I'm the Proven Not Perfect podcast host and a best-selling author on Amazon. Do any of these words call out to you? Drive, ambition, doing, leading, creating. These words call many of us, and sometimes to heroic impact. This is all good until we forget about our own self and our own self needs, mainly care. My Village of All-Stars, they not only command position, but they command influence. Well, there's always a backstory. I myself, Chantra Powell, have had to put myself on the sideline a few times, but I'm still in the game. I'm staying in the game. The only thing different about me is that I'm proven not perfect. Enjoy. Hey, Proven Not Perfect. This is Chantra Powell. I am excited to share this conversation with you. This conversation is just one that you will want to share with any young women millennial in your life. I'm talking probably late 20s, mid 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, maybe even up to 40, quite frankly. And you might want to share it because I think it's those tender ages, depending on, what your calling is, that you start to realize that things always aren't as pure as you maybe think they were intended to be. Also, you learn how to deal with stress in workplace environments in a different way. You learn about equity and inequity. You learn about positioning. You learn about finding your own voice. You struggle with that sometimes. All those things, y'all. All those things. And if you know, you know. So Tierra Briscoe is just a wonderful soul. Very present. I tell her that. But get past the initial opening where she and I are greeting each other. And I'm telling you, once you get into the meat of this, it is a conversation that will really hit home and really, really challenge you to think about where you are right now with your own self. We talk yoga, we talk influencers, we talk millennial, we talk all the things, y'all. Enjoy Tiara Briscoe, Yogi TB. Tiara Briscoe. Mic check, mic check. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Right. Yes, I hear you. I hear you loud and proud and loud and clear. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I hear you. I see you. I hear you. I see you. Like your whole being is so, I don't want to say big because big almost can be confused with all sorts of things, but it's present. That's what I want to say. Your whole being is very present. I remember meeting you over the summer at an event, and you happened to be enjoying the event as well as doing what you do at the event. And I just remember walking into a space on a mission for one thing. And you were like in the space, and I was just drawn to your presence. I was really drawn to your presence. And, let's just say you're like my little sister. But there was something about sort of, how you were living and standing and who you are right now at such a young age that it just caught my attention. And I was curious. I was really curious, right? And and then I would learn that, all those mornings that I didn't get up to do yoga. Yeah, that part, it was my bad, my miss, because you were there. So God has a way of sort of really making a joke, right? Because he's like, yeah, when you talk to yourself out of getting up to actually show up and do the yoga, that presence that you saw, that's what would have happened. But anyway, yeah.
Okay, because we're here now, and you still dropped so many gems on me, and now we're here. That's all that matters.
We are here. That's right on. Okay, so I dropped gems. That's hilarious because that's what you remember. I remember this presence of this young being, and you remember me dropping gems. Well, that makes me happy because I do hope that as I show up, I'm not only receiving, I'm offering as well. It's really, how I try to recommit daily. So I want to, first and foremost, for the people need to know that your handle is super cool. Yogi TB, right? Is that it? Yogi
Yes.
TB?
Yes.
All over Instagram, and I'm sure over so much more social. Are you like a social media person? Are you like all over social, or is it just old school? I'm just seeing you on Instagram.
You know, so I have come to accept the terms like I would say the past year or so that I am an influencer.
Oh,
I guess it sounds um, and I only say that because when I first started sharing on social media, like Instagram, like I had Instagram when it first became, Instagram. But when I first started sharing like my yoga practice, it was strictly for yoga. And then somehow during, I think I want to say the pandemic, yeah, like my trajectory started to change and I started to become more of an influencer, I guess you would say,
wow.
or like more in the wellness space. But like my sole purpose was to share yoga. But
Mm.
now I'm accepting the fact that I can still have a healthy relationship with social media, being an influencer and being a yoga instructor, a wellness instructor at the same time. So I guess I'm a
You're an
yoga
influencer.
influencer.
All right, so
Yeah.
we're gonna have to double click on that because you are officially the first influencer that Proven Not Perfect is talking to. At least self-stated, self-called professional influencer, right? So I want to talk about that because I know that you also have an amazing degree and probably lots of choices. I want to know, what did you go to school for? So let's take her all the way back and
Okay.
tell us about Tiara as like a young girl. Like, who were you when we met you?
Ooh, so Tiara, as a young girl, I was very inquisitive. I was very adventurous. Like I was always, and I always like to say, like I was the black sheep in my family. Not like just my immediate family, but my overall, family on both sides.
Why do
I
you
always
call
wanted to
yourself
be.
that? Tell us, what does that mean? Like, we know what we think it means, but I've come to learn that when people use that term, they stand in their experience, they've stood out in different ways. So I kind of, there's some ways that I can relate to that too, but it might not be the same as yours.
I don't know. I always went against like the norm. Like
Mm,
even, I wanted to be a crime scene investigator, forensic scientist. I used to have like a microscope set and everything, like dissect bugs and all of and all of that stuff. Like I was really like the science geeky girl. So when it came time for me to, even like high school, I took honors, AP classes. So when it was time for me to go to college, I was like, I want to study forensics. This is what I want to do. I want to be a forensic scientist when I grow up, all that good stuff. So then I went to Penn State and
shout
I
out to
studied crime law and
PSU. We
justice.
are. Just have to do it for the hubby.
Penn State.
Just have to
Thank
do
you.
it for the hubby.
So I studied crime law and justice, pre-forensics. It really was forensics at first, but then I got to calculus and I was like, I don't like math. And
There's always
so
that one
it
class.
calculus and chemistry because I do not like math at all. But I was still able to have forensics in my degree, basically. So I still, it's still a win situation. So I got my bachelor of science in that, and then I left college, of course, into the workforce. My background is law enforcement. A lot of people don't really know that. So I used to be a officer, and then I
Wow.
got promoted. I got promoted very fast to a sergeant, and then during my time as an officer, though, I got my master's. So I got my master's in forensic studies. So I went to Stevenson University, got my master's in that, and then I left the police force and I became an agent. So like a special.
Wow. That's so
So
cool.
that's
Girl, this is like some scandal wrapped in, I don't even know what to wrap it in. That's pretty doggone cool. So
So that's in the background.
So I'm starting to see some black sheep elements there, right? Because I can't imagine in the family, there were a whole lot of people that were talking about, first of all, the forensic science, and then criminal justice, and then ascending to even agency. That's super awesome. What drew you to that? Is that curiousness?
Yeah, that in this is my senior year of college. My senior year of college, I had an internship with the Penn State Justice and Safety Institute, and we had to do a project, an intern project, because we literally put together, like from the ground up, a criminal justice conference that took place in Canada. I couldn't go because I was a broke college student, of course. But well, actually, none of us could go because we were college students, and we were getting paid like $10 an hour, I think, for this intern. We did 6 hours a week. But anyways, so so my project and the program that I created was sex trafficking in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and in Canada, because the conference was in Canada. And so I focused heavy on, sex trafficking, of course, as a whole, as an umbrella, but child sex trafficking as a subtopic. And so I was just like, this is really what I want to do. Like, my goal in life is to get on a child sex trafficking task force. And so the only way to do that, like my path was always going to be law enforcement some type of way. I just didn't know what that would look like. But the only way to get on a sex trafficking task force was for me to eventually become an agent on that level.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's what really drove me to that. And also becoming an agent, we just have a little bit more freedom as far as like your experiences and your training, the agencies you get to work with, like to collab with, whether it's on a case or, you join this other task force, whatever it may be, or you become a liaison in some type of way. So that's really what drove my motivation. But also I just felt like, now that I look back in hindsight, that I'm older, a lot of the things I was doing also was to seek like validation and acceptance, like from my family.
Yeah.
Preferably like my dad's side of the family, because my brother and I were the only grandchildren on my dad's side. So I think I was like seeking like validation from like my aunts and uncles and my dad, unconsciously. Like to doing things to make others happy.
But you think the achievements. So it was all about, subconsciously there was this desire to have others kind of say, okay, she's doing it, she made it, she's good, she's representing, all the things, right? Wow. So you said you look back at it. When did it become clear to you that your internal driver was external versus internal?
I think it was when the job, because when I was a police officer, it was, a lot of people don't realize, it's of course a male dominated field.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff that I went through that I never really talked about, it was so stressful. I remember one time, because I had to work on weekends too. As an officer, you work like every other weekend, but when you become a supervisor, you work, of course, like more than others. And so I was at work and I was in like our control center, because that was like my little hub. Like I was really good at doing that. I was so stressed out. My skin, like on my chin, it was so dry and like it like cracked and it was just bleeding. And I remember I left work, because once I found out what leave was and that they can't question me for taking leave, I was like, I'm taking mental health days now. I started doing that. So it was bleeding. I left work, went to my mom's house, which is probably like less than 10 minutes away. I cried on her couch for like 6 hours.
Wow.
And so like that, I was like, okay, I'm stressed out. I'm highly qualified for this position. Like educationally, I'm qualified. I carry myself as a professional. I'm highly qualified and all these other things. But it was just so much that I experienced because I got promoted so fast.
Yes. There's something real about that. People don't talk about that, Tierra. And it is agnostic to industries, right? But those of us who are just built with this gene to be goal oriented, to be results driven, and to actually be really good at what we do, you definitely do see the results of promotion quicker than most people, right? But the part that people do not talk about is there's something that goes with the time of that promotion versus the quick based on results, right? The maturity, the actual readiness, the preparedness, the emotional, social aspects of it don't always line up to the I got the role. And I've seen so many people, if they are honest, they either flame out burnout or they are just over aggressive and not self-aware. Yeah, all the things, right? Like, I think I was somewhere between the two at different points, right? Oh my God, I love that you said that because too many people do not talk about that.
Yeah, it was so much that I went through, like from my superiors to
And I'm talking early
being
career,
over.
but life has taught you those
Yeah,
things, right? I'm talking early career when you're being promoted for being really good at what you do, but you still have some life to get.
yeah. So it was so much, and then I became an agent, and then that's when I really started to get like deeper into my yoga practice, and I started doing more things. And even with
How
that,
did you
there
know
was
about
things.
yoga? Tell me about that. How did you even know? How did you know?
So yoga was my gym credit my freshman year at Penn State. And I was like, let me take a class that I can BS in.
Yes.
Because my freshman year I was partying.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie. But
Yes.
I still had a 3.0, but
Yes.
I was hanging out,
Yes.
going to Shippensburg this weekend, going to Millersville this weekend, going to Temple this
Yes.
sometimes we went during the week. But
Yes.
I still got my work done. But let me just take that gym class where I don't even have to show up mentally. But it was the total opposite. Yoga was actually very hard, not hard in the sense as the physical aspect, because I've always been flexible. Because I was a cheerleader when I was younger, all that stuff. But it was hard in the aspect of mentally and emotionally, like being vulnerable and
Yeah.
transparent. In a room, there was probably 12 people in my class because it was very intimate. But just, I didn't know any of these people, right? And I
Yes.
was the only girl of color in
Yes.
my class. And my instructor was, a white woman, but she was so, 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 so amazing. Like
Mm.
I've been trying to find her honestly for a very long time, just
Wow.
to say thank you.
Mm.
Yeah, but I
Wouldn't
have
that
no
be
clue where she
amazing
is.
if it comes full circle and she hears this? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That will you gotta let us
Shani, if
know.
you're out there,
Call
Shani, if you're out there,
call her out. Look.
I would say call me, but I'm not giving my number out.
How about dropping my DMs? Because I'm Yogi TV on
Yes,
Instagram.
yes, yes. I know you got Instagram, we got Facebook or something. Fine, girl. But yeah, that's how I found out about it. And I had, like stuck with it. I took yoga 1 and 2. And so I stuck with it because the only person I was doing yoga in 2008, because yoga wasn't a thing back then. Like it
Right.
was a thing, but it wasn't like a thing. It was my uncle, my dad's brother. And he was the only other black person I knew that did yoga who was traveling all over to these ashrams and Kopali and all these places. And I was like, ooh, I want to do that. And when I first started, and I would come back home from school and I would tell people like what I was doing, they would really think I was like worshiping the devil. Because when people used to think about yoga back then, they used to think about
Yes.
meditating
Yes.
and all that stuff. That's not what it is clearly, but yeah, so it just became
And
a
some people
practice.
still in 2023 don't understand, or I mean, use better words, haven't reconciled their opinion of yoga, right? Because it's different than what they knew. And to your point, anything that starts looking like meditation, that looks like prayer, that looks like, we get worried about it, right? Especially if you're raised a certain way. But I'm going to tell you, never has my faith in God been deeper than when I tapped into the whole sense of my being, right? Like that, mind blowing.
That's what I tell people. I was like yoga, because even after going through my my yoga teacher training, I learned so much as far as like the spiritual aspect of yoga. And I was like, oh, like they don't really say these things. Like I'm spiritual, I haven't gone to church physically, but I'll watch church online still, but like it gives you a deeper appreciation for, your spiritual journey, your spiritual practice, basically. And so, yeah, going off of what you said, it brought me closer in my relationship, to God. Like, especially like if you're one of those people who don't really know how to pray, like
Yes.
me. Like,
Yeah.
some people have like a whole step
A
one, step
whole
two,
list.
all these steps, yeah, on their prayer. And
Yeah.
just like, yeah, God, I'm here. But like
But I think that's what he
meditation.
wants. And that's why I think yoga is so good. Because I don't think it's the list. I think it's just showing up and listening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
so yeah, that's really what it was. And then, I stuck with it on and off. And then I got really, really back deep into it. I would say my senior year of college, and then definitely in 2014, 2015. No, 2014, I started to do Bikini yoga. So,
Mm.
like, everybody knows it's the hot yoga. It's a more stricter style of yoga. And I did that like 6 days a week
Wow.
for a year straight.
Wow. And
Mhm.
so during this time, you're starting the career, you're working hard in criminal justice, you're ascending up the ladder to sergeant, you're getting into the agency, and it sounds like you're also growing your mental, physical connection, spiritual connection in this practice, like almost parallel
Mhm.
to it, right? And I think that resonates for me because that's a lot of my story as well, right? So is that what you contribute to the reason that you were able to acknowledge when you were getting really stressed out, really burnt out? Or now bring it full circle, when you finally decided to shift into a different way of being, what role, if any, did being so grounded and centered play for you?
Um, I, for me, I would say, 'cause I think this was like around 26, it was 2016. I had my own place. I had really like started to create like a safe haven for me at home. And I started to practice like very, very heavy. Because I was still doing yoga too. I was getting back into the gym, like working out and all that stuff. And I was just like, like I don't owe these people an explanation. Like I show up every day and I'm a good person. I've always been a kind person. And funny I say that is because the theme lately has been being kind. Like you don't have to be a kind person to be a good person.
Mm,
And like people pleasing, like also being a kind person as well. So I just think like I was just trying to make everybody happy before them. And I think once I've realized like everything is just taking from me, like
mm,
everybody, it was more take than like nothing was reciprocated at that point for me.
mm,
And so I just started to really like put myself first. Like of course I was still doing my job. Like I was a great supervisor, um, took care of a lot of people, but it was just that just didn't balance out just the way I was being treated. And so that's when I started to, okay, I need to get out of here and claim like my exit to switch over to becoming an agent. And then that's when like I was interviewing and I got the position to become an agent. And then I started back. I had to go to the academy all over again. So that was 2017. And then I started like actually my agent work in 2018. But then that's when I was teaching more and I started working with athletes. And it was a whole thing with that. And then I also just impulse. I was like, I'm leaving this place. And I like came to work one day after they had my like they call you the special agent in charge sack. So my sack of my office, he pulled me in his office. He was like, yeah, a lot of people are in the office don't know why you get special privileges. I was like, oh, if I still come to work, because I would work with athletes on Tuesday morning and Thursday morning, and I would come to work after. But I still did 8 hours. So
mm-hmm.
it's not like I was coming to work and before I was leaving and everybody was leaving at 2 o'clock. I was staying till like 6 o'clock at night. And he was like, yeah, they want to be like, I'm coming in, I'm going 8 hours. And they were just like, yeah, we don't know, we don't want you to be in the office by yourself after a certain time. I was like, I literally was a supervisor over 60 people, but you can't trust me to be in the office by myself. And it was just so many factors. And then I had came to work one day and I was at my desk and I put out my 2 weeks and I sent it and I put in my 2 weeks notice and I left. And then
Wow.
my journey of teaching full time had begun. But that's why I say I just always felt like I was the black sheep because I take risks. And
Yeah.
I remember my dad's cousin had said something to me before. He saw me at like a smoothie king around our way. And I was in there looking very somber, sad. And I was just telling him about everything that was going on. And I remember one thing that he said to me. He was like, what's a risk and no obligation?
Mm.
And that just has with me ever since then. So
What's a risk with no obligation?
mm-hmm.
Mm. And so was his
I was just telling him how.
was his guidance to
Go ahead.
take that or to explore that? Tell me more about that.
Because I was just telling him how, like my family just stopped talking to me when I left the government. Like my dad, his siblings stopped talking to me. And I was just telling him how that was, weighing really heavy on me because we're all like really close.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like my book. But then when I made that decision to leave, because I felt that's what was best for me in the moment, for my mental and emotional health,
Mm-hmm.
for my well-being. And it was no support. Not saying nobody's obligated to support me, but he was just saying like, you don't have any children, you have nothing that can hold you back. Like you always want to go back, you can go back if you want.
Yep.
So if you want to explore it, but you have no obligation to any of these people that aren't talking to you.
That's right on.
Like right now.
And I
So
think
like you're not doing this.
for the folks that are listening, I don't want to cut you off. Please don't forget what you just said. But for the folks that are listening that are earlier in career journey, I think people spend so much time trying to find their other or trying to justify who their other is, and too little time actually exploring who they are in those spaces where it's just them, right? You have to in order to not have regrets. And we're going to have regrets anyway, but there's not a person that wouldn't tell you on the other end that take the time to know yourself, because it makes you much more grounded when you connect with somebody else, right? Yeah.
So he was just basically saying like you're not doing these things to make them happy. It's for
Yeah.
you. Like they already had their lives experiences. And I was in like my mid-20s when I did this. So
Wow.
I was just like,
Very
like I could
young.
always go back. Yeah, I could always go back. I was very high up in the government at such a young age. But I just also feel like for my generation, when we go into these spaces, the government spaces, 9 to 5 spaces, everybody that's there before us, that's a different generation and how they look
Yes.
at life. So it's either you experience people that were welcoming to you, or people that are super judgy, or people who, wanted you to work or be a certain way when that's not how it works. Like I remember they had told me I was opening and closing my cases too fast. I'm a writer. Like, yeah, like it was a whole bunch of that, or just being want to know more about my social life rather than the work that I was doing. Like, I don't come to work to make friends, like record you, but we're not best friends. And so, and like once again, in hindsight, looking back, would I have done it differently? I would have left. I still would have left. Don't get me wrong.
Still will though.
Absolutely, I still would have left, but I would have done it differently. I would have had a plan in place. But I don't regret anything that I've ever done at all.
So tell me this. So now you leave, you're
Mm-hmm.
you're in this entrepreneurial space, right? And probably scary. probably scared. I don't know. I would imagine even for a risk taker, there are those times where we're just like, what did we just do? What did we just do? Yeah. What happens? Like, was it as 1, 2, 3 easy, or how did you get to the articulation of I am an entrepreneur, I'm a professional in yoga, I'm an influencer?
Oh my gosh. It was not easy to lemon squeezing and all. That's why I say I would have had a plan. So if anybody's listening, before you leave, have a plan in place or a 1095, 9 to 5, feel your passion before you decide to transition. But when I first started, like, I was a young instructor
Mm,
in the game. I was taking on like any opportunity that came to me, but I got burnt out.
yeah.
I stopped teaching for like a year. I got burnt out. I wrote about this in a blog like years ago. I didn't have money to go from point A to point B.
Mm,
I had to move back in with my mom, which I'm not embarrassed about. But it's just like
shouldn't
for
be.
somebody who has taken care of herself since I left for college. I hadn't lived with my parents since college, lived with my mom since college, you know. So it was a lot. Even still to this point, like entrepreneurship for me has its ups and downs because I didn't step into the influencer space
Yeah.
until, like I said, so this is 2018. I didn't know where I was going with this. Um, but I still, I made it work. One thing I've always done is survive. But one thing I have been working on, I will not ever operate in survival mode ever again.
Mm,
Like moving forward. Like early on, I definitely was operating in survival mode, just taking on, like I said, any gig that sounded cool. But that was also me trying to appease to everybody else, which has ultimately gotten me overlooked, undervalued, underpaid.
mm.
And I would never do that again. But yeah, it was not all rainbows and unicorns. It had its fun moments, but the good moments. But starting out, it was just very scary.
Yeah.
I was
I'm glad you said that because I think that, it's almost become a little bit sexy to be an entrepreneur in this day and age, right? And I think that too many people don't misunderstand the true grit and grind that's required, right? Just to even, be self-sustaining. It's a big grind. And so you better know exactly what your North Star is. I mean, I think you had that, right? So you at least, even though it was hard, at least you knew what was calling you, which I think is more than a lot of people.
I knew I always wanted to be of service some type of way. Like I started doing a whole bunch of community activations in DC and Maryland, which is great because that's honestly what really helped build up who I was. It helped me find like my voice as an instructor, the way I carry myself as an instructor. Even still, like I love being of service, but now I have boundaries in place in how I teach and how I show up and all of that. So yeah, and I'm still trying to find like I never once did
Wait,
I
so we
set.
have to unpack this because this is actually a question that I have for this new generation
Okay.
of professional influencers. When you realize you have thousands of followers, thousands, right? In some instances, you'll never see their face, right? But when you realize that, how would you compare the responsibility that you feel there versus the responsibility that you felt in a corporate situation where you were a sergeant and you had, hundreds following you or 30 plus following you, right? Like, tell me about the feeling of responsibility and accountability, because I just wonder if everybody has that or if it's just something that you have to let go of because it's faceless.
I would think I'm
You can think about
going
it.
back to what I said
Yeah.
earlier. Like I at first when I started doing this, I was like, oh, I gotta post this month. I have to post this month. It has to look like this. It has to look like that because I'm like, okay, I want to appease to I guess, a certain audience. But then it was like, that's not who I am. Like, I'm going to be myself. And just because, for one thing, and I can't speak for all, but I know being in the yoga and wellness space, like on social media, as a Black woman, a lot of stuff has been over sexualized. So at one point, I had to like just be super mindful of if I post this, how would this look, or how would this pose be perceived. But then it got to a point where I was like, okay, I don't care because I know I'm not doing this for people to, you know, validate after me or, you know, be infatuated with the thought of me. I'm really doing it because one, I want to show women that there's women of color who aren't like this big, who
Yeah.
like have the archetype body. You know, we have curves, we have
Yes.
fence, we have wrinkles, where it may be. So, like, you can do these poses, you can look this way and do these poses, still look good, still be comfortable in your body. But like, I'm always, one thing I'll always do is be transparent and be like genuine and authentic in how I deliver my content. Like everything I show or anything I speak on was based on my experience. Like even when I do it in a bodybuilding competition, showing how my body changed from this, and this to the end result. So even how my body looks now, even though I was 115 pounds less than 4 years ago.
Mm.
So like at first I used to be very like tend to get stressed out on how I posted or how I showed up on social media. But now I'm at this point where it's just like I'm a post and I feel like it unless I have like a campaign and I have to post for, right? Or if I post, if it has to be something that truly aligns with me and my beliefs and who I am as a
Yeah.
person. Because I, sometimes when people do post, you can just tell it's authentic
Mm. So
and what's
true.
it's like being what's being forced. So for that, but even when I was a sergeant, I thought it would be a little difficult, but it was easy though because I never changed. Only thing that changed was the patches on my uniform
Yes.
to let people know I was sick. But like people, I still looked out for people. I still treated people the same. I never felt like I was superior to anybody, you know. But even then, I've also been a very outspoken person.
Mm-hmm.
I was very outspoken. Just because I'm in charge, don't mean I'm about to sign off on this paper. I'm about to ask questions like, what is it?
That's right.
Even like social media, like during the pandemic, I was very vocal about, discrimination within the wellness space.
Yeah. Mm.
It's, and I was calling people out. But
Mm-hmm.
ever, but that also built up my following because I was being who I am.
Yes.
Genuinely, like, I'm very passionate. Like I'm a Scorpio. You can be very passionate. You can come off like a little harsh sometimes, but we mean well,
Yeah.
you know. So if I
So
speak on something, you're gonna
so
believe
you
in it.
have to pull that out because um I'd love to hear your thoughts on discrimination in the wellness space. Are you thinking it's institutional in that you can't be a professional? Are you thinking it's a direct correlation to access? Do you think it's all parts in between?
It's all part from the team. To be honest, a lot of people, like I said, I do a lot of community activations within the DC and Maryland area. A lot of places in DC that I do community activations are like underserved communities to an extent. Um, but they don't know. A lot of them never knew what yoga was, or that was their first
Yeah.
time, meditating. But you can't. A lot of them can't go to a yoga studio because they're expensive,
Yes, that's right.
or they're not nowhere. They're nowhere near them. So, you know,
It's so true.
I will always be an advocate. Always be an advocate on making wellness and yoga accessible to people who look
Mm.
like me.
Oh, I love that.
Um, like I said, in 2008, the only people I knew that was doing yoga didn't look like me.
Yeah.
The only other person that looked like me was my uncle. So I
Mm.
thought it was just for the people who didn't look like me.
Yes, but that's not true.
So like even when, yeah, it's not true at all. Or people think that you have to look a certain way as far as like how your body, the anatomy of your body, or you have to move a certain way, or for it to be yoga or talk a certain way. when really yoga is, how do you show up for yourself in the world on a daily
Yeah.
basis?
I think that's the thing that I
Like,
love about yoga so much because um, you can call out 5 different poses, right? And they're going to look 5 different ways. And it's because we're 5 different people. And I think when you really get to the place of understanding that this is about your relationship with your body. You let go in a yoga class when somebody to your right looks like they've got the perfect camel pose and you are still scared to lean all the way back, right? That's what I love about it. So how do you get people that have never been exposed to it before in these activations? How do you get them to relate to it first and to trust it second?
I, when I teach my classes, I don't use Sanskrit terms at
Perfect.
all. I speak plain
Because that does
English
not
when I
resonate
talk.
for me. It did
No,
not.
no, it does not resonate. And honestly, I can't remember half of them.
Yes,
Like,
true.
I use these words on a daily basis. There are some instructors that are really, really good
Yes.
at cueing Sanskrit, but I don't do that because I can't go to Southeast DC and be like, you know, go and as you take an inhale and you exhale, slide it to Skandasana on the left side. They look at me like I'm crazy.
Right, right.
One of the layman's terms, keep it simple, is take an inhale and as you exhale, I want you to bend your left knee and lean on to the left side, kind of to the sideways.
Perfect.
I like to keep things simple and good, but
And it's okay if
I
the Sanskrit words are used in a space where people understand it. But what you're saying right there is a lesson, even in life, around inclusion, right? Which is understand the language of who you're speaking with. And if you really want to connect, you're going to use the language that will invite a connection, not one that's going to be like, bye.
yeah. And I tell brands this all the time. If you reach out to work with me or reach out to work with anybody, you need to do your research on your audience.
Yes.
You love what I do, but you don't know anything about me or my audience.
Right.
Like the companies that reach out, that want to work with me. It doesn't make sense. But I like to teach how I practice. Like the same way, you met me in my bubbly personality. I don't remember what I was doing when you saw me, but that's the same way I greet people that come to my classes. Like, hey, can I take your mat? How you doing today? How you feeling? Can I put your mat down for you? Just making them feel welcome. And I would say one thing that I feel very blessed is that I've created and I wrote to things people so many safe spaces for people, regardless of color. I feel like if you can create a safe space where people can just come
Mm-hmm.
and be there to just let go. Like some people might end up even going to sleep. That says a lot to me. If you
Yeah.
feel comfortable to close your eyes around, women people that you do not know from Adam or Eve, that says something about the instructor. So
And it also says something about you as an instructor because you're seeing the whole person and you're accepting what that soul needed, which this might have been the only place where they could lay out something and lay there and close their eyes with complete trust and get rest. Girl, that's deep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so I will say that if I don't get anything at the end of the day, I know that I create that safe space and somebody is going home feeling 10 pounds lighter,
Yeah.
emotionally and spiritually. Maybe not, physically, because we didn't sweat, but other aspects, I got you. That class might have been a chill class, but yeah,
So,
that's what makes my heart smile.
what advice would you give to people who are still trying to decide what their relationship is with with yoga as a tool for being grounded and centered, what advice would you give them? And maybe it's because they've never been exposed to it before, because they never saw people like themselves enjoying it, or maybe they just have their own mental block around it.
Honestly, do feel good to me. Like, it's some days where I in my mind, I want to practice. Like I'm gonna practice. It sounds good, but then I might pull the mat out and I just lay there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I realize like meditation is yoga. So yoga. When we think about yoga, we think about lift your arm up, put it down. Lean to the side, take a breath. When it's really about your breath.
It's about your breath.
And how are you breathing? You're
Yeah.
just checking in with yourself. We don't always have to do intricate, extravagant moves to say it. Like inside a yoga practice, you can literally just sit. Like, sometimes if I'm going in the house, like if I leave here, go back in the house, I probably sit in the car for like 10 minutes. And whether I'm just listening to music or I'm just sitting there, like just breathing, just checking in with myself.
Yeah.
Just like this, like feeling my heartbeat. Things that people don't really take notice of, like we take our breath for granted. I always say a heartbeat, like when's the last time you just said, like, I'm breathing, like, I'm alive, I'm breathing. Like I'm actively controlling my breath rather than something controlling my breath for me. And I feel my heart beating. So these these are things I just tell people, like, especially I meet so many people and their first thing is, but I'm not flexible. And I'm like, I don't care. and I'm not saying I don't care in like a nasty way, but I'm saying I don't care because you don't have to be flexible to do yoga.
Yeah.
Physically, you don't have to be flexible. The only thing that needs to really be flexible is your mind and your heart. Having an open mind and heart is something different that you probably never did before. So let's tell people the thought of thinking about getting on the mat. That's the first step. So practice. That's all you need, and then you actually get on the mat. You might sit there for 5 minutes. That's fine. And then you might come back. You might do a cool pose that you saw on the internet on YouTube. That's a practice. So it's really what you make it.
Well, I can't tell you how much I really respect and appreciate your approach to evolving in this practice. And quite frankly, bringing a whole new viewpoint to a practice that, I found as a Black woman who, doing the corporate thing, mom, wife, all the things. And like you said, highly stressed out on the right side and somehow stumbling into this place next to my coffee shop, and invited to stay. It didn't see any of me around, none of me around. This would have been probably in the 2008 time frame, very much like you said. Didn't see a lot of me around, but I am still clear that it was that practice of grounding that helped me to sustain through some of the toughest years of my life, right? I'm still clear on that. And now that, I'm getting a bit more mature and some things don't feel so hard to do anymore, especially those things that become right muscle, it's definitely pushing me to be open to new things too, and new approaches. And so I love that too. Look, you're a gift, and I love that you are owning your influence in this space. If you have not already gone to Instagram, which is my jam, if you haven't already gone there to pull up Yogi TB, you should, because she takes some amazing trips and she shares them with us. And you also make yoga a centered lifestyle, and you also share some tips with us. It doesn't have to be fancy, and I love it's even so approachable. As I'm going to bed at night, And there you are showing what kind of poses go with, right on top of your bedspread, right? So, those are all good things. And they're in English, right? They're in English. They're in the language that your listener understands, your audience understands. So you're taking away even some of the intimidation that goes with that. And to me, that is brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time and your space. On TikTok, are you Yogi TB too?
So on TikTok, okay, I'm still trying to figure out the tick of the top.
Girl, me too. Me too. Ticks on the top are not easy for me.
Yes. I think my name on Yogi, oh my gosh, I think my name on TikTok is Yogi TV Vibe or something like that.
Yogi TB Vibe. Okay.
If you see my face, it's my page. I think I have any fake pages out there, but I haven't reached that level of famous yet. But
it's
Yogi
coming.
TV Vibe, I think that's my TikTok. Yeah.
It's coming. The more we learn lessons and actually have something to share. That's what I believe now in my life, right? It's coming. The more we learn lessons and have something to share, because it's not about the fame just for that, right? There's purpose and intention that goes with it. And as we learn lessons and have something to share and a heart to give all of it away, girl, it just pays in spades. All right, sweetheart. I can't wait to see you at that same event this summer, hopefully. And you keep doing what you do, and I'll talk to you soon.